So that's usually my cue to start. I'm going to wait a minute though. Okay. So now I'll tell everyone the real reason we didn't have it last night. It really was the weather. But it was my birthday too, so.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thanks. It's the 15th anniversary of my 29th birthday. Maybe 16th, I can't do the math right, but somewhere. Okay, so we will get started. Just a couple reminders as people are still coming in. We did disable chat, so as we go through the first part of the meeting, we will turn it on, but we just wanted to go through some things first. So welcome everybody. This is, I don't even know what number Tuttle Talk, but it's midsummer Tuttle Talk, we'll say. Lots of things have been happening. This is being recorded, just so you know, as always. And things are just moving quickly. In the news, you've probably all heard there was a second grader in Georgia who tested positive for the virus the first day of school. There was another school in Georgia, the largest district in Georgia. I think it was 250 teachers tested positive. Yeah. My 13-year-old just said, whoa. So we know, exactly what we predicted was going to happen is already happening. Here in New Hampshire, we did have a teacher in summer school in Barrington was just tested positive. So they closed down the rest of summer school in Barrington, and now they're relooking at their plans. We just found that out today. In the spring, there was some teachers and some educators in Merrimack that tested positive and had been in the building. We had some in Goffstown as well. So, I mean, it's here, it's happening. Last week I was on a call with Mindy Mesmer, and she was saying it's coming up the 95 corridor. Well, it's here, it's made its way up. So, we just had the race up in Loudon, which I should say up in Loudon. It's like across from me in Loudon. Last weekend, some schools are starting to push back school until, the first, second week in September 8th, September 9th to start, but that's still another week after the Labor Day holiday. So we don't even know what's going to be happening over Labor Day, people going away, coming back, visiting, not visiting, etc. So we are calling, last week we put out the call for all remote until October. And that's to get plans together, to get real solid, good plans together, because at this point, districts are so different that we don't, we're still trying to collect all the information. Concord hasn't even had their vote yet. That's tomorrow night, because last night they had technical difficulties with their meeting. Keene, I think, had to postpone their vote because they were having technical difficulties. And there were a few others I saw locally that had to postpone their vote. So, the districts are all over the place. Some are going full remote, some are, to start, some are doing hybrid. Now hybrid's coming out is not a really good solution, because you still have kids at home part of the time and back in school part of the time, and who are they with when they're at home, but then they come back the next day. And so, and then some are doing all in person, which we know is going to be a debacle in itself. They showed pictures from the second grade where the student in Georgia was tested positive today, and they don't require masks. They didn't have any mandates. It's exactly like New Hampshire. It said you should follow the recommended guidelines of 6 feet apart. Well, the kids were all sitting next to each other. Some had masks on, some didn't. So everything we put out in our guidelines saying these are the minimum safety standards. Social distancing has to be kept. You can walk by. The masks have to be kept. All those things that we put out, those are must, those are shalls. That's not a shouldn't. And we have today that, because it was a should in another state, second grader tested positive. So everything we put out, I mean, I hate to say it came true, but guess what? We knew what we were talking about, right? And we knew because educators are on the front lines and knew what they were talking about. So we've called on the governor, just so you know, emergency order 36 basically presumes for frontline workers that if you get the virus or coronavirus, that it's assumed that you got it on the job. It's presumed you got it on the job. We're calling on the governor to make educators part of those frontline workers. We're considered essential workers when the whole state shut down. We're considered, frontline workers when it comes to learning how to tie tourniquets on kindergartners and first graders, and then having to buy those tourniquets. We're frontline workers. But he's not considering us frontline workers for this, and that's just ridiculous.
how much cupcakes they have?
You can have 2 cupcakes. They're little ones. So we should be considered the frontline workers, right? And I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm going to forget who it was now, but they didn't have anything to do with education. And I know, it was an ex-fireman. I was at CrossFit, and he's one of the coaches, and he said, this is BS. You guys should be considered frontline workers. Why aren't you getting the hazard pay? Okay, so someone who's retired from from being a fireman is realizing that we should be getting this. So those are all things we're fighting for. That's all well and good if we have it on paper, but what I've been hearing in these Tuttle Talks is, what are we going to do, right? What are the actions? Tell us something to do. So we had last week, and we would have rolled it out last week, except we didn't have the Tuttle Talk. We formed a Principles Action Committee, kind of like a PAC, but we'll call it a PAG. It was a group, because if we call it a PAC, then we think, political, did I say political action? I meant Principles Action Group. And so we had staff on it, and we had some members on it, and they came up with some great things. And so I'm going to ask George if he can share the screen. There we go. So this website that we have is going to go live tomorrow, and this gives members some specific, I'll just hold on a second. This gives members some specific things that they can do. And so all the options that are on here, we're looking at as member-driven actions. We've said this before. We don't want to have a whole big rally at the State House to show how upset we are, because it defeats the purpose of social distancing, right? That would just go right against what we were trying to do. So they came up with this website, and it has specific actions, and they're things that we can start next week. So these are putting the principles to play. So are you the one? Are you the one that's going to do these different things? You can go on, George. Yeah. So, this is okay, I must have a different slide. This is the letter that came from the Barrington superintendent, saying that there was a confirmed case that had a staff member. So this is what things are going to look like when we start getting the letters. This was publicly shared. Notice it was after the fact, after the contact. How many people would you have come in contact with in 1 week, if you think about it? They have to close for at least 5 days. It's just the beginning. I mean, the question is really, how many students and educators need to get sick before we reclose the schools? It's going to be that whole yo-yo effect, right? We're going to open, we're going to close, we're going to open, we're going to close. If you want to talk about student mental health and educator mental health, what is that going to do when we can't even have that consistency of one or the other? George? So we have different days of the week to do different things. The first one is going to be Mask Up Mondays, and this will be starting next Monday. We know that masks have been proven effective to slow the spread of the virus. Governor still says that we don't need them. You shouldn't be forced to wear them. Set your own policy. That's a load of crap. You need to have masks mandated. And so Mask Up Mondays, post pictures of yourself on social media. On next Monday, the 10th, post pictures of yourself, educators wearing masks, along with maybe masks that you're going to be using if you've already been told you're going back to the classroom. The 17th, post pictures maybe of students or your kids, if you feel comfortable, in your family wearing their masks. Next week, post pictures of family members you're hoping to protect. We need to make this personal so that the governor knows it's not just us. These are personal things. This is a personal connection that you have with your families, etc. And that's who you're going to be protecting. So use the hashtags New Hampshire Politics, hashtag Mask Up Mondays. This is one of the, and then we'll have some links and everything, but Mask Up Monday, it's a great thing that we should be doing. Next one. Okay, Take Action Tuesdays. This is contacting elected and appointed officials, basically Sununu and Edelblue. Let them know that we are not happy. Next Tuesday, the 11th, if we're being forced back into unsafe school buildings, we must have the same protection as other frontline workers. That's what I was talking about with Executive Order 36. You must have the presumption that if you get coronavirus, you got it at work. That's what we're demanding. August 18th, masks are required in almost every public area except schools. Why aren't you protecting the children and educators by requiring them? You can't go into Lowe's without a mask. I thought it was hilarious when the governor had his press conference last week, and he was talking about going to Lowe's and Hannaford's and how happy he was that everyone was wearing masks because it's required. He missed that. It's required to wear them. So make it required in schools. And then the 25th, how many students, educators must fall ill before you close them again? What is his plan? We don't know what plan B is because he doesn't have a plan B. It's you do what you think is best. Leave it back up to the locals. So we'll have links and talking points. You can send emails, mail letters, make phone calls. But these are all things that you're going to be able to share with your members and share with other people. Again, we want this to be a member-driven campaign. It's not going to be a statewide, everybody at the State House for this because every district is different, but we want this to be member-driven. Share this, send it to other people. Write a letter Wednesday. This is going to be a letter to the editor campaign. We'll have links to the newspapers and the letter to the editor section with guidelines and instructions for sending. If you've never sent one, we'll have some talking points if you want them. Personal stories are always best. People love hearing the personal stories. Encourage your family or friends to write. If writing isn't your thing, there's really other ways that we can get your message across. We'll talk about those. So the 12th, how safe is our school's plan? What happens if somebody gets sick? Why not remote learning until October? Here's the thing, I don't understand. So we have this rush to get back to school for some reason. Part of, when we went remote in the spring, everybody said, oh, this is a great time. We can relook at education and we can relook at what we're doing and reinvent it and we can do what's best for kids. If it's best for kids to hold off going back to school until October, then why are we rushing to go back just because we've always gone back at this time? Why not take this time, truly look at what are the best plans for your district? What is plan A, plan B, plan C? Write them out and then really look at them. Why do we have to start school right around Labor Day just because we always have? The Department of Education should be willing to work with us in this so that we can really make things the best way that we can for the educators and students in New Hampshire. The 19th, family members and students and parents submit letters expressing their concerns. And then the 26th, seriously, are we really doing this? Why are we bringing large groups of people together in the middle of a pandemic? Athletes can opt out. Why can't we? How many baseball games were just shut down? How many millions of dollars are they spending on testing for all the athletes in the US right now? What does that say about education in the United States right now? That we're more focused on making sure baseball games are being televised, that we bring everybody together and test them daily, and that the NFL is way more important than the education, the investment in our future. This is insane. So these will have some talking points, etc. So other ways you can get your message out. Has anybody done a happy birthday, little happy birthday parade in their car? Okay, we've done a few of them this summer. What do? You write on the windows, happy birthday, so, we love you, whatever. How about writing this on your car so that everywhere you go, you see it? Remote learning keeps us safe, mandate masks, right? Go around town with it. Why not? We do it for birthdays. Let's do it for the most important resource we have, our children and our educators. Post videos of your signs and messages. This is campaign season. How many little signs are out front? Let's get some signs out front for educators and students. Make some homemade signs. We're creative. We're thrifty. This is New Hampshire. We can do this. We can be really creative on everything that we're going to be doing here. So there's lots of ways that you can do this. Time to vote Thursdays. Okay, we talked about this last year when we were talking about all the violence in schools. Remember in November? So on the 13th, be sure you're registered to vote. Go find somebody who isn't and bring them with you. Make sure they're registered, or register them for the first time. Oh, hold on, sorry, my screen just went a little funky. Let me just change this. There we go. The 20th, absentee ballots. We are promoting an absentee ballot this year. If people don't want to get out to the polls to actually vote in person, get that absentee ballot. We actually have a webinar, I think tomorrow night, on how you can do this. And then the 27th, planet. Do you have a voting plan? When are you going to mail in your ballot? Do you know who our recommended candidates are? Things like that. So we have this tomorrow night, New Hampshire Voter Information Virtual Town Hall. It's tomorrow night at 6:30. If you have questions, and you can, get this out for anybody else to help. And then Fact Sheet Fridays. Questions about rights, responsibilities, pay, benefits, we have the answers. We'll post all those links, the fact sheets. We'll have a weekly quiz because, we're educators. Why not check our, our learning? See, this is what would be called a check-in, right? An assessment, not a full statewide assessment like the commissioner wants to do, where it's statewide and the same. This is just checking in on everybody, and then we can rearrange what we need to, right? We can remake the lesson if we need to, because we adapt on the fly. That's what educators do. But share the information. I think there's a lot of people out there who really just don't have a complete understanding of what it's truly like to go back into the schools. So these are the 5 days. Like we said, the site's going to be up tomorrow. We want to put the principles in action. It needs everybody's help. Everybody on this call, get all your friends, your family, everybody. This is going to be what's going to change things in New Hampshire. I don't think one statewide action is going to be enough to change the minds. But if the commissioner, if the governor are hearing from educators, from children, and they had kids on the news tonight on WMUR, if they're hearing from family members, these are the people we need to hear from. So I know that we have at least 3 people from the committee on tonight, Lori, Michelle, and Carolyn. If any of you want to jump in and maybe say anything I might have missed or talk about anything that you guys talked about in the meetings, we'll do that, and then we can get the chat box open.
So I think what our goal was is to try to make sure that the governor changes his mind about masks, changes his mind about the pre-COVID assumption, and changes his mind, change the pre-COVID assumption. That's probably not the right term, but, and also really encourages schools to go remote. We know that Hampstead has decided to go remote. Milford has decided to go remote. Sanborn has decided to go remote. Dover has decided to go remote. I believe that Nashua is voting tonight to go remote. And it just seems that that may be the best option. If people would focus on a more robust remote program to start school all the way through October, we would probably be a much better state by that. Did anybody else want to say something?
Yeah, I think this is Michelle. I'm thinking that, a lot of people are, we're hearing that people are kind of up in arms about a lot of the plans that the school boards are considering, proposing. Now is the time to really go back to your members and see how they feel about the plans that are being at the school board. And if they're not happy with them, if the majority of the people aren't happy with them, then you have all these resources and ideas available to you. Sometimes you guys as leaders, you are responding to other people who are saying, what's the union doing for me? What are we doing? And here's some ways that you can redirect them and say, well, we need your help, and here's some ideas. Can you write a letter to the editor? Can you write a letter to the governor? Can you help us design, a mask that we can all wear and, on Mask Up Monday, or can you be in charge of social media that day? So hopefully these tools will kind of help spread more involvement, or help to create more involvement among your membership, and get more people invested into what it is that you're doing on the other end of, kind of really being on the front line, talking to the administrators and working on these MOUs and trying to get all this stuff done. So it helps people, makes them feel like the union is meaningful to them when they're doing something. So I think it's a pretty good, a lot of good ideas out there that you can then bring back to your membership and share with them and try to organize.
Carolyn? Oh, George, can you unmute Carolyn? Sorry.
Try not, Carolyn.
Thanks, George. I'm like, I can't do anything. Yeah, I think for me, working with this group, and is exactly what Megan said, is that it has to be member driven. He needs to hear from 17,000 members, and I think we can make a difference, and it needs to be more than just one occasion, one event. It needs to be continuous for 3 weeks. Just bombard him left and right. And that's the whole goal of this, and we just need everybody's help.
So I do have to share this. We're looking at masks, right? Michelle's like, please don't. I just saw this. A friend actually sent it, and I saw it earlier on Facebook. I just think this would be hilarious. I think we all need to get this mask, and we need to take a picture and show it to the governor. Can you guys see that? Okay, it's childish, I know. But to make a point to have fun with this, I mean, we don't have to have the plain, you know, throwaway mask. We can have fun with this. I just said I would pay. I'll find the money if we want to order those for members. But don't quote me on that, Michelle and Lori. We're keeping that quiet. It was that one. So the other thing, too, I just wanted to bring up. Can you guys get her a bone? Sorry. The other thing I just wanted to bring up is, you know, I think if I'm more than willing, if you guys are having a meeting with your UD or somebody else, I don't mind joining them to talk to them about these actions. I have no problem with it. So if you want, you know, me to join anything, that's fine. Just let us know. The other thing I heard today that I thought was interesting is there was a collaboration of about 10 states, and it's Massachusetts, North Carolina, I think Wisconsin, Minnesota. There was a bunch of states that are all getting together, and they're going to the company that does the quick tests. So they actually are putting money together and saying, we will pay, you know, whatever it is, we'll front, I think it was like $5 million to get those quick tests. So, you know, within 10 or 15 minutes, instead of waiting the 7 to 9 days or whatever it's taking now. So, you know, testing hasn't even come up in New Hampshire. Contact tracing hasn't really even come up. I mean, who's going to be doing all that work if somebody does get tested? So that might be something. I just heard about it today. I'll talk with the principals action group about getting some talking points out about that. Maybe we can try and convince the governor for that too. Because if we can have that testing, you know, that's just another layer. And it's a 15-minute, I think, response time that you would know. So, so what we're thinking for tonight, it's a little different. We are going to get the chat questions going, and then we're going to get the chat log out to all the UniServe directors in the morning, and they'll be going through to see their members and kind of answering as we go. I did see the state of emergency, and I did ask Brian Hawkins about it yesterday when he came out with that. I think it was yesterday he came out with it. If the state of emergency is still in effect, he can still close the schools, from my understanding. If it's not there, I don't think he can. So I don't know if that's what he thinks, or I don't know. We think October would be a safer time to have in-person education. We're saying wait until at least October. We're saying go remote or hold off opening until October, because quite honestly, I don't think in most districts have been enough time to do really good practice for what remote instruction or online instruction would be. A lot of districts I'm hearing is they're saying that they're promoting VLAX. Well, from what I heard today, VLAX has now a waiting list. VLAX teachers, from what I understand, are part-time teachers. It's not a full-time thing. So you're on a waiting list to get the credit or to get a class. And besides that, not every district in New Hampshire accepts credit from VLAX. I know the Bedford School District doesn't take VLAX credit. So if you're a high school student and you're transferring in or going to Bedford, they're not going to take the credit from that class. So that's another kind of quirk about it that isn't being addressed really. So just something to think about. So why we're waiting till October, it gets Labor Day out of the way. It gets that 2-week period after Labor Day gone. And it really gives people a chance, and districts of plans to a chance to really focus on what is the best practice. What's going to be the best for our district? How are we going to make sure people are safe? Where are we at this point? I mean, the governor keeps touting that, you know, the cases were so low here for children. Well, yeah, because the schools were closed. So you open them back up, it's going to go back up. I mean, we're seeing it all across the country at this point. And I just quickly saw this. Teachers are not all New Hampshire teachers. That's right. We have teachers that live across the border in Maine and Vermont and come across. We have teachers that live in Massachusetts and come up. So, I mean, there's a lot more to this. So that's why, you know, we don't want to say that every district has to stay remote all year, but if each district has a chance to take the time and look at what's best for their district, this needs to be thought out. This isn't something that should be done willy-nilly. And so that's why we need to make sure that, you know, it's just being thought out. So that's why we're waiting. We think October is a good time for the districts to be able to really get that in. Yes, 100 students quarantined in Mississippi. I mean, we're just going to keep hearing more and more cases as more schools are opening across the country. The South tends to open up a lot earlier than we do because of heat and things like that. You know, so that's a problem. I did read, which district was I just reading about? Oh, Concord. We still haven't had our, you know, what's going on, but they say that the classrooms are all going to be good with HVAC. I still think that's my biggest concern. You know, besides the social distancing, I think the air quality in the classrooms is going to be, you know, the biggest concern, because we're being told there's, you know, oh, there's plenty of money. Well, we have buildings that are 100 years old. How are you going to get it fixed? So you're going to expect us to go back while they're fixing it, or get us put on a waiting list to have it be fixed and still have all that? I mean, it's those things that need to be thought out. You know, what's going to happen, where the kid's going to go. Is there, you know, a quarantine section? I hate to call it that, but it's like the rash section at the doctors. When you were a kid, if you had a rash, you had to go sit on the bench alone because they didn't want you around other kids. Same type of thing. You know, if you're getting, I know that's what I remember from the doctors. But that's the same thing here, you know. And if you get tested, what happens for, you know, somebody, is it 2 weeks you have to quarantine? I had a test done on a Monday, and I was having surgery on a Friday a couple weeks ago, so I had to have it done. It was a rush job. I had to have it done, and I found out quickly, but I could not go anywhere for that week. I was literally stuck at home for that week because when they did the test, it was a moment in time. What are we doing with all the educators and students? You know, are they going to be, how do we know that they're at home? I mean, there's so much. You guys know all this. I'm not going to, you know, keep going over it, but we'll see. And you know, it's going to coincide with flu season, but I think that's kind of where we're at this point. So, oh, you know what I did think was really interesting? I was on a school care board meeting the other day, and school care is getting all new. They just got a new HVAC system installed because theirs blew out, and they were talking about different offices that were getting all the new HVAC systems. And I thought, well, that's really nice that these offices are getting things. What about the schools? You know, what about the schools where we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children? So anyway, you know, this is, Sue, it's an investment. They need to make it, right? I mean, this is something they have to be making. It's going to cost money, but you know what? Sorry, it shows the inequities of how we've been funding everything. Sue was just talking about, you know, how much it's going to cost in Manchester to do the filters and everything. Oh, too bad, you know. We will come up with a well-written message for you to parents who are looking so that they can go to work. We know that we're not daycares, but unfortunately that way of thinking, I think, is still out there. There's some districts in Vermont that are actually working with the local Boys and Girls Club to have kids go there during the day, so that if they're doing a remote learning session and the parents have to go back to work and they can't be home, they're looking to have the kids go to Boys and Girls Club or other groups like that, where they can still keep distant from each other, but they can do the actual learning. So I don't know why we haven't been looking at partnering with some of the colleges and looking at the different centers that are open during the day, the YMCA. You know, I know Manchester has really good connections with those groups. I think other cities and towns need to be looking at the same thing. Can we be having them there? You know, if the Y's open during the day, they have childcare programs. I worked at the mall when I was in college. Let's start looking at all those. So, you know, those are the things that I think we just need to start kind of thinking and looking at. $40 a day to assist with hybrid school districts. I mean, you know what? That's something to be looking at. I think it's something to be looking at. Yeah. So, you know, 95 people here.
Megan, someone had their hand raised.
Oh, okay. Did you see who? While you're figuring out who, I'll just answer this question and you can let George know so we can unmute them. I think that this campaign can be extremely effective. I really do. There's 95 people here, but if each of you talk to 2 or 3 people, that already brings us up to 300 people. right? That can be effective. If you reach out and have one or two, if everybody does one thing, you know, and reaches out to one or two people, it's going to be effective. So I'm seeing you guys as the core group. A lot of you have been on these Tuttle Talks week after week, which I love. You've kind of started this little like Tuttle Talk group. I'm trying to think of a T word and I can't think of it. Tuttle Talk team, we can call ourselves, the 3 T's. But I've seen a lot of you on this, and I know you're looking for things. So these are things, you take this and you tell one person who can tell one person, you know, pay it forward in a sense of let's do these actions and let's get it out there.
Hey Megan, this is Megan Walsh. Hi everybody. I'm sorry I'm late to the party. I'm on the action team too. One of the things that we've been talking about is doing these things, sharing them with your colleagues, with your community members, with your you know, fellow parents, friends, and family, but also sharing this stuff out on social media. You're gonna have so many different options of ways to share these things that you're doing out and use various hashtags that can connect people back to the organization, back to the principles, back to the philosophies. And we're really hoping that this gets New Hampshire viral if people push it out and reshare and repost. So that's all I wanted to add to that, into getting awareness spread about it.
No, thank you, Megan. And I think, you know, and that kind of brings up a good point too, that if you want one of us on a meeting with you to talk about what they are and to get people psyched up, we can do that. We have no problem doing that. Just let us know. Let your UD know. I have no problem coming into meetings, talking about it with them. So they see that everyone's working together, because we are. This is concerning everyone. And Megan, I'm just gonna let everybody know, we hired Megan from Arizona, and you may have heard of this little Red for Ed movement they had going on in Arizona. I don't know if you've heard her. Okay, so Megan was part of that. So we have someone here who's actually been, you know, doing things like this before. So having somebody who's been in a different state working on things like that is always helpful to us. We were talking, Megan, how, you know, a statewide thing might not be the best right now, but all these little actions for people taking together is going to be perfect. Canvas, somebody thought, my thought on the purchase of Canvas, if you want me to be very honest, Cindy, I think there was a deal in there for the Commissioner of Education, and yeah, I think he got a deal on it. I think he owed somebody something or got a favor from somebody, and that's why we're doing it, because I don't know that it was put out for anyone else. They used part of the CARES Act money for it. You know, when I found the link to it, and all of a sudden the training dates had all gone by. And when I know Michelle had emailed Steve Appleby as well, and the reply was basically, well, they're on webinars, you can go on to them. It's intensive from what I've heard from people. And so to go on and actually try to get all the training before school starts, I don't like it, but it's free to the districts. So you got to wonder how many districts are going to be doing that. The other thing we need to ask about and push back against is statewide fall testing. There are going to be assessments in the fall, a statewide assessment. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Grades 3 through 8, it's just ridiculous. So, and somebody told me, one of the UDs told me that Canvas, actually Power School, had a cease and desist letter against Canvas. So we'll see what actually happens with that. So I don't even know, I mean, again, which is why I think there was some sort of, you know, plot from the commissioner about it. So we'll see if that's what, you know, it sounds good in theory, but this is like what they've done this whole time. You put it into action and the pieces start to fall apart. Let's have a statewide learning management system. Great. And then the next breath, oh, we can't have that because they're local control. I mean, they're so far all over the place. They're just feeding us things to get Sununu and Edo Blue out at this point. Like, we can't write this ourselves. It's amazing. So anything else? And again, this isn't that we don't want schools to not open, right? We want to be back, but we need to be back safe. I mean, you guys know, you see my kids walk around in the background. I have 3 kids of my own. I mean, why do I want them going into schools that's not going to be safe? Their teachers are on here. I know that, you know, 2 of my kids' second grade teachers is on here, and I talk to her offline a lot. They want to be back in school. My kids want to be back in school. I want them back in school, but I don't want them back if it's not safe. There's no Thank you, Sue. There's no reason we have to push this. We don't have to rush it because we've always done it the way they're doing it. We should not have one teacher nor one student die from this. And I was asked that question by Adam Sexton last week. It was on the close-up, and I was not expecting him to ask me what happens when that happens, that the first teacher dies. But, you know, if we rush back into this, it's going to happen. So we're also trying to get the $100,000 death benefit extended out to this as well, which we shouldn't have to do. We shouldn't have had to do it for violence. We shouldn't have to do it for this. But unfortunately, that's where we're at. So we need to, you know, take some of these actions. We need to figure this out. There's been a lot of questions, and Charlene, you just made me think of this, where to get the ADA request form. Can one of the UDs help us with that? Because I've been getting a lot of the emails, and I've been trying to ship them out to UDs because I don't know the answer to that. There's been a lot of questions about where do we get that form and how do we fill it out. So we'll have it on the website tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Lori, is that a form you
Yeah.
sent me?
Yes, it is a form I sent to you. But Charlene, what do you know what region you're with?
Where's Charlene?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm in the North Country, so I'm SU 9, North Conway.
Perfect.
Okay.
So Michelle's here. She can connect up with you or talk to you now.
Yeah, so I think that the issue is that, you know, we do have, there's not necessarily a form to fill out unless your human resources department already has one established.
We don't have one.
Yeah, the Americans with Disabilities Act doesn't require a form per se. They just require a need to make a request. And so if you're, you know, that you may not even be required to provide medical information if your disability is obvious. So for example, if you use a wheelchair, you don't necessarily need, you know, permission to use the elevator. It should be obvious that you have the right to use the elevator, for example. What I'm hearing is that there's some doctors out there who want to know what to write. And so we've been a little cautious about that. You know, and I don't know if there's any other UDs, Lori, if you want to jump in on this. You know, we may be able to provide you something, some suggestions on that, but we don't really want to be in a position to tell doctors what to write. They should really be the ones who kind of figure that out for themselves. Lori, did you want to say anything more about that?
Yes. Unfortunately, the notice we did create a form where people can make a request to their school district, notifying them that they have a need for an ADA accommodation. And that form will be on the website tomorrow. Once that form is sent to HR, HR will generally send back to you a request for more medical information. That request for more medical information is not at all useful because it was created pre-COVID. So when the form comes to you, they have a lot of questions like, are you able to perform an essential function of your daily life? Are you able to, you know, do the requirements of your job description? Because usually the job description would be there as well. But that really has very little to do with COVID. So when people have been receiving these forms back, they have a lot of question about, how do I make this relate to COVID in any way? And I think that that's where people have been asking us, what should my doctor write here to make it relate to COVID? And again, we're not doctors. We can't help with that, but we can, you know, help you understand better what the questions are. And your HR person should also be able to help you better understand what the questions are, so that when you do go to your doctor, they can better understand how to relate it to COVID. But I think the first thing is, we do have a form that says, hey, I think I have a need for an ADA accommodation. Send it to your HR, and then HR sends back to you a form for you to take to your doctor. What you should not do, and what I discourage completely, is giving HR permission to speak directly with your doctor. If there's a way not to do that, that is in your best interest. Use the form that they give to you, take it to your doctor and have them fill it out, and then return it. But it definitely should not be HR contacts your doctor. That's something I do not recommend. I also don't recommend, in one school district, they were asked, well, if they were asked, if we do not make an accommodation for you, would you quit the job? So basically, HR was encouraging them that if there's no accommodation made, they should quit. We don't want to go down that road either. That has nothing at all to do with them making an accommodation. Yeah, interesting, Edward.
Lori, I think for what it's worth too, there's been a lot of people, this is Nicole, I represent the Seacoast region. There's a lot of people in my region that had some questions about what the administration got to ask for records and information because of the confusion with that COVID, that pre-COVID form to ask questions. And so for us, I would echo Lori, if you can get the information yourself, that's great. If they're going to insist on access to your doctor and you want to give them that access, I would have that access be very limited. Make sure it speaks to specifically to that disability for which you're applying for the ADA for, and nothing else. My folks have been a little bit uneasy because the form asks so many questions about things that have nothing to do with COVID. And so, for example, there are questions on that form about your mental health status. If you are not applying for COVID for a mental health condition, you should be writing, or your doctor should be writing, not applicable there. You need to have a very clear conversation with your doctor. Your employer does not get information about a medical condition that you are not applying for ADA accommodations for. So, for example, if you have schizophrenia and you have stage 3 kidney disease and you're applying for the stage 3 kidney disease and for an ADA accommodation, and the question on the form asks if you have a mental health issue that impairs your functions or makes you at risk in the employment setting, that question should say not applicable even if you have that condition, because that is not what you're applying for the ADA accommodation for. They don't get an open gateway to your medical history. I think that's really important, because there's been people that have been a little bit confused about, if I don't disclose that when they ask a specific question on it, is that a problem? So I just think people should understand that and be comfortable saying not applicable. It has nothing to do with my request for ADA.
Someone just asked, what about if I have an immunocompromised family member? So unfortunately, the ADA does not provide you any direct protections if your family member is the one with the immunocompromised issues. So the Americans with Disabilities Act is not the place where you would find the protection. The protection for the Americans with Disabilities Act is only for the employee who has the need for an accommodation themselves. But that does not mean that your school district could not provide some accommodation to you if asked. I know in many of my school districts, because they're so desperate to open their schools, teachers and ESP have been able to ask for almost anything, such as having an air purifier in your room, making sure that everybody wears masks at all times, maybe being behind plexiglass, maybe having the windows and doors open at all times. So they've been able to make those requests. In addition, they've also been able to say that if this is a risk to my family, will you allow me to work remotely? So they've made those requests anyway. They just aren't ADA requests.
Thank you. So we're getting close. We're going to try and have the cutoff at 8:30. All of these questions, this whole chat log is going to go to all the UDs tomorrow, and I know they're looking through them now, the ones on here. So they're going to be able to answer the questions directly to their members. I just want to interject a few things here. Sue's been keeping me updated. For those of you, we have the Representative Assembly this summer, and we're voting on the new leadership. So Noel Candeladera is the new Secretary Treasurer for NEA. He was the president of Texas Teachers Association. He's a really good friend of ours, and I think he's going to do an amazing job. Princess Moss is the new vice president. She moved up from Secretary Treasurer. And big shock here, but Becky Pringle is the new president for NEA New Hampshire. For NEA, sorry. It's not for NEA New Hampshire, for NEA. And I think that leadership team is going to do an amazing job. If you came to our gun rally a couple years ago, the anti-gun violence rally. Becky Pringle spoke. She's from Philadelphia. She's hilarious. New Hampshire's not ready for her. She's amazing, and she's going to, I think, do a great job leading NEA. So I just wanted to throw that in because I was getting updates on the side as to what was going on as we went through. The thing I did want to just say to everybody is this is the worst time, I think, to be an educator. I think this is even worse than when we have school violence and we have things happening in schools. You guys need to know that you are great at what you do. And no matter what's being posted out there, people don't know what's going on. People don't understand what truly goes on in the classroom. You do as an educator. They don't know truly what goes on in a school unless they've been there. And I know there's been a lot of negative things, and some districts are having, pretty bad insults thrown at teachers that they're lazy and they just don't want to go back to work and this and that and blah, blah, blah. We know that's so far from the truth. So if no one else is telling you, I want to tell you that you are doing the best you can, and you truly have everybody's, everybody's safety in mind. You are truly thinking of the kids that you work with every day, of the staff you work with every day. Just, you got to remember that, because there's going to be a lot of negativity coming out. And I think you just please keep in mind that you are amazing at what you do. You are doing great things. Don't listen to the negative comments. You are doing this for all the right reasons. You're not doing anything selfish here. You're trying to keep yourself safe, your family safe, and the kids you work with safe. And that's so important. So whatever comes out of all of this, please, please, please remember that you all are wonderful and you're doing the right thing. And if no one else thanks you for it, I'm thanking you for it. Not just as your president, but also as a mom of 3 kids that are going to go back in schools. Maybe, we don't know, because technical difficulties, but keep that in mind. So please just keep it in mind. No one else says thank you, I will. This came up before. Should teachers be required to disinfect work areas? Does one of what do that? I knew Lori was going to say no.
So teachers, there are EPA guidelines on how to clean schools now. Hopefully your custodians have been trained on those EPA guidelines. Teachers have not been trained on those EPA guidelines, nor do we want teachers to be trained on those EPA guidelines, because teachers teach, paras do paraprofessional work, food service workers do food service work, secretaries do secretarial work, custodians do custodial work, and that's what we want to do, that kind of work. What I have been arguing with some people about is the fact that they want you to wipe down your desk or wipe down your private materials. That is a choice that you can make, but being responsible for wiping down the student's desk or being responsible for cleaning up behind a student once the student leaves your classroom is not something that you should invest in, mostly because you don't want to be blamed if someone in your class catches COVID from touching a surface.
And all that should be provided, correct, for the desks? If you are cleaning it down, that should all be.
If you are cleaning your own desk, absolutely, that should be provided to you. You should not be required nor encouraged to bring in your own cleaning materials, because again, there are EPA regulations on what those cleaning materials should be, and we should not be providing them. Students should also not be wiping down their desk. The one thing that the New Hampshire guidelines on reopening schools made clear is that students should not be touching chemicals. It's very clearly stated there.
And they have a white and black bulldog.
Oh, okay. Sorry, we just had a lost cat outside, so my son was trying to get it back to its owner. So yeah, I think, all of these, I hope people are feeling a little better about these questions. I mean, we have such an immense, breadth of knowledge in the UDs that are on the calls with us each week, and they look at all these and they see where everybody is in the questions, and they get back to them. So I'm hoping that at least we're, if nothing else, giving you some tools that you can bring back to your locals to say, no, we're not going to do this, and kind of go from there. So I'll leave it open a few more minutes Linda, what which region are you in? Do you know, Linda Johnson? Oh, can you unmute Linda Johnson, George?
She should be able to. Can we
I'll
find
try
her?
it again. I just did. Yeah, I'm in
Okay.
Derry.
That's okay.
In Derry. Okay, so Megan's on with you here. She'd be the one really to connect with about. Derry's been having some fun stuff going on, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the first time I've ever been out at a protest in my life before the school board meeting. So,
Oh, congratulations.
You guys,
I got you, Linda.
you marked off spots, did it right. But I think, yeah, Megan, do you want to kind of connect with Linda offline about what's going on down there?
Absolutely, Linda. Do you know how to private chat me your email?
sure, I'll do a private chat with you. Sure, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll leave about 5 more minutes open for, just kind of some general, if anybody else has anything. Again, I really think, I think this is going to be powerful. I think that this is kind of our local Red for Ed movement, if you want to call it that. Get them involved, get your members involved. We just heard Linda, this was the first time she did anything. And you know what? You just need to do one thing. If everybody does one thing, that's 17,000 things that are getting done across the state. And we cannot ignore that. So that's a good question, Sue. Cleaning the school buses. Anyone want to tackle that one?
What about cleaning the school buses? Who would be responsible? The bus driver or the bus driver company is responsible. We certainly should never be cleaning the school buses. I know Merrimack Valley does employ bus drivers. So it's possible the custodians may be cleaning those buses. But if we do not employ bus drivers or we do not have a bus company, we should not be responsible for cleaning.
So any of the ones that are contracted out, which is a lot of the buses across the state, their company should be doing that.
Yep.
Yep. Anything else? Okay.
Well,
again,
hold on. Meg,
Got yourself on mute, Laura.
George, can you unmute Kathy Donovan, because she was asking me a specific question about what her school district, Concord. Then the answer to your question, Kathy Donovan, is Jason Faria is your UD.
Okay, thank you.
And you should possibly reach out to Mike Macri to help with any answers to questions you have.
Yeah, I've already reached out to Mike. We have little to no answers in Concord. It's extremely frustrating. We are due to start back August 26th or August 27th. I understand the projected date for students is September 8th, but we're looking at 3 to 5 days of mandatory PD. We can't even get a school board to be able to get their technology act together. The parent forums were horrendous. They basically presented 2 different nights. Elementary school had an hour, middle school an hour, high school an hour. They went 35 to 40 minutes within that hour of just presenting the slides that they had already done in the instructional committee, and left 20 minutes to questions. Half people couldn't even get on to ask questions. I've sent emails asking that they please post the parent questions that are being emailed in with the district response on the district website, and I've gotten no response. So I have emailed the school board with my concerns. It was a very long email with about 30 questions, down to they're talking about putting 3 to 4 tents outside. Well, what about intruders? What about safety measures for kids? There's all kinds of questions that they're not thinking about that we as teachers do, because we always have to do a task analysis on everything we do. So I'm very concerned, for everybody, but particularly where my school kind of sets in back off the road. So yeah, I have been in contact with Mike, but thank you for the other information. I'm just concerned that, kids are going to be put in, if there's not enough kids in, if we have a hybrid model and a remote, parents will get to choose, well, what if we don't have enough students in a remote cohort? And then do we bring students in from other schools in the Concord School District? So then what happens when we hopefully do have a vaccine and those children go back to school? The social emotional issues are huge for young kids. I'm a second grade teacher, so I you know, really always think in that line. And I'm just very concerned that there's just a lack of organization. It's driving me crazy. So thank you for listening.
You're welcome.
And I'm just going to say that I agree with everything Kathy just said, because my kids are in her school and she had 2 of my kids. So this is when I talk about my kids being in school, that is Kathy's had them. And she, where she's talking about is where my kids go to school. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Not to say I've been none too happy right now. The Concord district came out with 3 models, all in person, all remote and hybrid. Okay. We could have done that last year. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, okay. So I think at this point we will pivot. That is, we can play, I think next time the governor or the commissioner are on TV, I'm going to have a bingo card for every time they say flexibility or pivot or, you know, all those words that they just love to say. We can make a fun game out of this. So maybe we'll get that set up somehow for next time. I think the other issue that's been coming up a lot is the liability. And so that's something, you know, the UDs have been saying this all along, do not sign waivers, do not sign waivers, do not sign waivers. If anything's presented to you, go to your UD right away. If you don't know who your UD is, let us know and we will we'll make sure that we find them and connect them with you. We will have another one next week. Not sure on the topic yet. Will come up. I think it'll probably be some more on what's going on, maybe some actions that people have taken. We can have some success stories. Again, Mask Up Monday's coming up. If you want the snot mask, let me know. I think that that would be hilarious if teachers all showed up and educators all showed up. Maybe not food service workers. That might be a little odd. But you know, if you know that's the first thing kids saw when they came to school, bus drivers, everything, I think that'd be hilarious because you know, in all of this, as serious as this is, we have to have some fun with it. And I don't know any teacher that wants to go back and, you know, teach in rows with everybody facing you. It goes against every single fiber of our being as educators to do that. Someone just said I should ask the governor or Edelblue to be part of this. That would be hilarious. I'd love to see. They won't even answer our letters that we send to them. So anyway, I thank you all again for what you're doing. If no one else thanks you today, I thank you for everything. As a mom, as your president, as an educator, and we will get these chats to all the UDs in the morning.